It's a really interesting time for universities, and I think you're seeing broadly two different responses, depending on the institutions, their geography, their history, and their mission. On one side, you've got institutions that are locking down, retreating, going back to their core, what they see as their core position. And on the other side, you've got universities actively deciding to open up, to engage wider publics, to bring people into conversations. So I think I've seen these two paths emerge, and obviously there's a lot of grey between those. At the same time, societally, universities are having to reassess who it is they're talking to and where the students are coming from, and also where those students may be going to in terms of future careers. Also a challenge for universities to consider how critical they want to be of society and government at a time when the degree of understanding in government of what universities can be and do for society seems to be extraordinarily limited. There are lots of opportunities here. There's a desperate need for institutions of knowledge production and dissemination. And there are obviously very significant risks in terms of just the number of students able to come through doors to fit into lecture theatres, whether the technology and the support systems are in place to do good online and asynchronous teaching, let alone online and asynchronous research. So real challenges ahead, also real opportunities. And I think what's going to be really interesting is looking at how different types of universities respond to those challenges and opportunities. And in recent work led by Carl Huang, we've seen that this complex pattern of different things that we can observe, including staff demographics, social media activity, open access policy development, outward-facing narratives like annual reports, that there are patterns emerging in how universities are responding. The next step really is to try to understand how to translate that into the kinds of strategic information that will help universities navigate this space. So the next steps for COKI are really about identifying how we can get a richer set of information that gets us beyond these narrow and homogeneous university rankings, which obsess the sector, and towards a much richer and nuanced understanding of where a university is, who it can learn from, and who it's serving and how well it's doing in that role. The pandemic really has, I think, shown us a couple of things, assumptions about how quickly and how generally we want to and need to make information available, dealing with huge amounts of uncertainty, and not knowing what the quality of input information is, as well as the challenges of bringing together all the right expertise to look at really complex problems, has really illustrated that communication of uncertainty is really important. I think where we are at the moment, looking at the diversity of challenges and opportunities that universities are facing, is to gather the information that helps universities make decisions about that across a broad spectrum. So we know a lot about research outputs, where they're going, what disciplines they're in, whether they're accessible to people, to some extent, whether they're being used or having an influence. Know much less about what universities are doing to really engage communities affected by research or engaged in research. How do we tell when we have sufficient information to make a good decision? The assumption that everything should take as long as it needs to be perfectly accurate is clearly wrong. Do you wait 5 minutes a day, a week to get better information? Or do you provide your best information as you have it at the moment? Over the last 3 to 4 years, we've pulled together a lot of data on what universities are doing. the pandemic, in some ways, was a massive distraction, and in some ways, really allowed us to focus on what was important and what was emerging. It's going to be fascinating to see what the effects of that are over the next couple of years. And we've got a real opportunity to see how universities are responding in terms of their internal work, the staff demographics, the kinds of research they're supporting and promoting, and also more externally, how effective they are at communicating that out to both the broad society and specific communities who need information.